Hello, Tamara. How are you doing?
I'm doing,
I
I'm
am
doing
very
well.
honored to have you here today. So we're gonna talk about your instruction implementation. So Tamara Bressi is a highly experienced DI teacher, trainers. She was my mentor as well and a coach. And I was very honored of being trained by Tamara when I went down to Eugene at the National Institute for DI conference, where I received a training about how to deliver direct instruction programs. So today I'm gonna jump right in, but I'm gonna offer you to introduce yourself and add a little bit more information.
Perfect. Thanks, Jessica. It's a great opportunity to see you again and to see that you're carrying the torch still and with such passion as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to have a chat with you today. So, like you said, I'm Tamara Bressi. I live um, on the other side of the pond here over in the western part of the United States in Oregon. I've been in education since I was 19, which is, if you can't tell, just a little bit ago. I'm starting out as an instructional assistant and then moving into being a certified teacher with background in special education. So teaching credential in special education, my master's in special education, as well as a teaching certificate in Gen Ed, and have taught a variety of different levels actually prior to teaching in a public school setting. I taught in preschool. So I've been able to see students from wee ones all the way up through high school, and all that time using approaches, using a direct instruction approach with small kids, with my own kids, with my grandchildren, as well as with students in the school setting. I've worked for the National Institute for Direct Instruction for about 26 years. Excuse my cat. Sorry, it's real life here. Um,
Yes.
so, so I've worked with the NIFDI for about 26, 27 years in a variety of different capacities. Trainer, director of training development. My current role right now is an implementation manager where I get to go on site, work with instructors, work with students, which is my passion, just being in the classroom, seeing how kids are doing and seeing how we can help them do better. So in addition to being on site with schools and instructors, I also get to be have the opportunity, like you were saying, to do training, to have folks with skill and passion and compassion like yourself come to our conferences. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get my cat out of the way, but apparently right now she's very needy. Okay, go.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you again. I learned so much from you, so I'm hoping that we can spread your knowledge across through the website, or sorry, the webinar for today. And thanks again for making the time to be with us today. I'll
So,
start with the first question. So I've got 5 questions that we go through. I'm just going to ask questions. The first one was about what are the most effective strategies for introducing direct instruction to schools, leaders, teachers who might be unfamiliar with the approach or might just be hesitant about the DI approach.
sure, we certainly can understand that. So I think the two biggest pieces here, if we're having instructors or schools or leaders who haven't quite jumped on board yet, is to share with them the rationale.
Mm,
So the overall goal for direct instruction programs is to accelerate the performance of students. And when we say accelerate, we simply mean teaching more in less time. So if students learn more in less time, so year after year, starting from an early grade, the positive results can be can be compounded so
mm.
that they perform even better than expected as they move through their primary grades into secondary. So that's one thing, is to understand the goal of direct instruction. And there's not many people who are going to argue with or have trouble with, yeah, we want to accelerate those students. We want them to learn more this year than we ever thought possible. And the other piece to that is to share results. Right, so go
Mm.
on the NIFDI website, look at our research and see how students come out of direct instruction programs learning more, knowing more, again, than what we would have traditionally expected. There are two foundations or foundational principles for
Mhm.
acceleration, and one is being efficient with instruction. And one
Yeah.
is the other is being effective with instruction. And so when we
Yeah.
get the opportunity to work with instructors and show them how efficient the methodology and the curriculum is, and how effective the methodology and curriculum is, then we have a greater opportunity for buy-in from folks who might have started in a hesitant or, yeah, I'm not quite ready to jump on this boat.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I agree. So the rationale explaining, what the research says about DI, there's a loads of evidence to support the effectiveness of DI. Just goggling project follow through is the biggest example,
For
and
sure.
then explaining the results, so showing, how much impact you can have using DI on student outcome. Great. The second question is, okay, so assuming that somebody's ready to take on GI, and so within your training, within your role, how do you address any challenges or resistance from people? So let's say the leaders have decided to implement direct instruction, but the teachers are still quite resistant to it. So how do you tackle that from a trainer perspective or a leader point of view?
For sure. And again, that's not an uncommon thing. Folks get told, go to this professional development.
Mhm.
Maybe they wouldn't have chosen it themselves,
Yeah.
but they're part of a team. So they're being a team member. But still, they bring their preconceived ideas and notions with them. So I think one of the first things we do in a training is acknowledge that. We
Yeah.
want to acknowledge that what we're about to do, what we're about to learn, and how we're about to learn it might be different than what they've been taught previously. It might complement it, it might enhance it, and those, of course, are our goals, but it also might be quite different than how they originally were instructed. And so I think just to acknowledge that, get that into the room, kind of helps you start to relate to the instructors, because many of our trainers were those people. They were
Mhm.
actually instructors who came with their arms folded and an attitude of, this isn't going to work and I'm going to make sure it doesn't work. But because of the rationale and because of the efficiency and effectiveness of the program, they turned, and now they're trainers. So that's
Mm.
again, it's not unusual to have a few folks who are like, you're going to have to prove it to me. And that's fine, because as we are training, we offer plenty of rationale of why we do what we do. Why do you have signals? Why is there a script? Why
Mm.
do you need the whole, everybody to answer at one time? So before we teach that as a technique, as a delivery skill, we teach the rationale behind it. Now, understanding that rationale does not get rid of resistance, but it can work at calming that resistance down a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, during our trainings, we give ample time for instructors who are attending to ask questions,
Yeah.
validate that they have concerns. Now, if they have a concern that is not to the benefit of the whole group at the moment, because we do need to
Mhm.
be mindful of moving folks along and upskilling them, we invite them to write their questions down, and our trainers are available to meet with them, at break time, at lunchtime, maybe set a conference with them later, because questions and reservations and are important for us to address. We just don't want to ignore them and sweep them under the table. We definitely
Mm.
want to address them and move us forward at the same time. But I think the biggest thing here, Jessica, is during our trainings, we stay student focused. We
Yeah, great.
we need to follow a
Mm.
script. And here's the benefit to the kids. That's part of that rationale. We need to get a whole group response. And here's why. Benefit for the students. It's not about us as instructors. It's about giving those students the best instruction in the best way possible. So we always bring it back to why should we care? What benefit to the students does this have?
I
And,
agree.
and I find, honestly, over the course of a couple of days with folks, even those who come in doubtful, leave so much more positive and willing to embrace the
Mm,
methodology and the curriculum. And I think one of the things on the outset as well, personally, I tell folks, please suspend disbelief for at
mm,
least a little bit of time, right? Keep an open mind, an open brain for the next several hours or day or 2 days, however long we
mhm,
get the privilege of being with them. And if you can suspend disbelief and let new information in, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised and pleased with how this will impact students.
that's very true. And changes always bring discomfort. And
Yes.
it might also mean that they they lack confidence, when you tackle something new. Obviously, you're a novice, so it takes time to readjust and,
Sure.
and practice. And the training is there for that as well. There was heaps of hands-on activities, and you could see and observe coaches as well delivering or modeling lessons. So that built up that confidence over the week that we had with the training. So that could add as well to ease, I guess, the transition maybe.
For definitely, for sure.
Mm. My next question is about what do you think or what do you consider as the most crucial DI components of an effective implementation in a school based on your experience?
Uh, As you might remember, Jessica, participating last summer, you'll
Mm,
remember that in our trainings, we have a checkout form. In other words, we have identified specific delivery skills that are critical, are crucial to student progress and student development. And
mm-hmm,
so we focus on those during training. So in other words, can our students, or are our students receiving the lesson as intended? In other words, is the script being followed? And again,
mm,
remembering that we always give rationale. Why do we have scripts? So we will give that rationale of why we have scripts before we even practice them, before we even take a look at them. We want to make sure that our students are being prompted to answer as a group. And
mm,
so our instructors using clear signals. We want to make sure that the lesson progress through the lesson and over the course of time is adequate so our students make growth, not gross. So they make growth. So we want to look at pacing, right? So how are our students being paced through the lesson, which has to do with how well practiced an instructor is. We want to make sure that our students are being monitored visually, right?
mm-hmm.
So is
Yeah.
the instructor comfortable enough with the script, practiced enough with the script to look up at the students and monitor their responses? Is there an opportunity in the lesson or in the exercise to ask individual turns? Right? That's a skill that we teach during a training session. We want to make sure that students are being positively reinforced with
Mm-hmm.
specific
Yeah.
praise, right? You've probably seen this yourself. Kids can get good jobbed to death, right? Good job
Yeah.
to no,
Well done.
good job, good job, good job. We encourage in our trainings to go one step further. Good
Mm-hmm.
job getting that answer right the first time. Okay. Good job sitting tall and keeping your eyes on me. In essence, we're telling the students the behaviors to continue.
Yes.
Right? So not just good job, but good job doing what? And so that's a focus and a critical piece of our training, which we look for when we go into the classrooms. And then this piece as well, that all encompassing error correction. So
That's another one. Mm-hmm.
are our students being taught until firm, right? Are they being taught to mastery? If a mistake or an error happens, are our instructors fluent enough and practiced enough to move right into a seamless error correction to firm those students and then move on?
Mm,
So those are a lot of skills, critical delivery skills, but all those that are dealt with during the training. If somebody comes to, typically we'll run the equivalent of a 12-hour training
mm-hmm.
for a specific level of the program. And at the
Yeah.
end of that 12 hours, we would have the instructor teach back a couple exercises so that we can see that they can apply Yes, I can follow a script. Yes, I can signal. Yes, I can look at my students, et cetera, all those things that we just talked
Mm,
about. Can they apply those effectively during a lesson? Because if they can do that without students in front of them,
yes,
their
agree. Yes.
chances of being able to do it with students in front of them greatly increase.
Mm,
But if they cannot do it without students in front of them, putting kids in the mix isn't going to make it any easier, right?
mm,
So we work on those skills and work prior to, ideally prior to those students coming. And if
yes.
we have an opportunity where maybe one of those items needs practice, then we will follow up with them on site. We'll have
Yes.
at least somebody from our organization, a NIFDI expert, be in touch with that instructor and help with the practice.
Yeah.
Because again, it's all about student performance.
Mm,
All of these things we just mentioned have benefits to the kids. And if we
yes.
do them well, efficiently, effectively, our students are going to do the best ever.
That's right. And I remember in the training we had like components of an effective training session, like where you had the theory, the rational, and then you had the demo, practice and debrief, and you had a ratio. Do you mind extending a little bit and explaining a bit more this one?
Tell me a little bit more about your question.
I remember during the training that to deliver, like, because I delivered DI training to my staff, and so how you could break down your session to optimize it. So we start with we start with lecture, so explaining the rationale back to your first point. Then after that, you do a demo, so you show what it should look like. Then you've got the practice, which is the part that takes the biggest amount of time. And then after that, you debrief and provide feedback. And that's really a powerful piece that I took away from your training.
I'm so impressed, Jessica.
Yeah,
Look,
well, I remember.
seriously,
I
look
use it.
at
I use
you.
it in my training these days. Yeah.
I get a lecture, demo,
Yeah,
practice, debrief. And
that's right.
you're absolutely right. In a program training, the practice piece gets 50% of the
I think
allotted
that's right.
amount of time, right? So that instructors feel confident when they walk out of there that they can teach that lesson or that program to the students when they first come. Ooh, that was awesome, Jessica.
Well, that was one thing, I mean, upon reflection, that I didn't allow enough practice for my staff, for my teachers. When
Okay.
I was delivering, obviously in schools, time is very poor. So you might get on your staff meeting length, like maybe just an hour to do a whole update on spelling mastery. And it was really hard for me to find the right balance about how much rational I give, how much demo, and then how much practice do I give them. And I increased that amount of practice I was giving the staff during my training sessions, and I could see the difference and the confidence and the buzz in the room when they get to practice in small groups. And yeah, that made a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad. That sounds great. It sounds like your trainings are quite effective.
Well, I learned from you, Tamara.
Girl, you brought it with you. You brought it with you.
Yeah. And then okay, next part might be about a bit further challenges, but thinking about what are some of the pitfalls, implementation pitfalls that you have seen schools facing.
Well, we can kind of look at those in two categories. And if folks want to have a more in-depth look at it, you can take a look at the book Kurt Engelman wrote on direct instruction. It's a practitioner's handbook. And there are
Yeah.
two chapters in there. One chapter that talks about the pitfalls for school leaders, and
Mm-hmm.
one chapter talks about the pitfalls for instructors once we get onto campus. And
Mm.
both those chapters go into pretty good detail,
Yeah.
implications, and then solutions for it. But I can just kind of summarize that for us here. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that would be great. Like some examples of yeah. It's always good to know what could go wrong, so then you're better prepared.
Yes, indeed. Like that's how I think rules are made, because something went wrong, and now we're going to make a rule so it doesn't go wrong.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So a pitfall for a school leader, we can just start there.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that we see is that we don't get we get a lack of clear and consistent support.
Yeah.
So if we don't have support from the top down in terms of implementing with fidelity, we'll bring those kids along for sure, and the instructors with them, but we'll hit a ceiling.
Mm.
Can only go so far, but with district support or trust support, I'm not sure the vocabulary of.
Or system or yeah,
Yes,
department. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes.
Mm.
With that support, there is no limit what we can do with those students and with those instructors. Another pitfall in the leadership department is not allocating enough time for instruction. So
Yeah.
if a
Yeah.
reading mastery K lesson
Yeah.
takes 30 minutes and we need them 5 days a week, we've got to have 30 minutes 5 days a
Mm.
week.
Yeah. Time allocation. Yeah.
Um, another big opportunity we see in terms of pitfall, I don't know if you can call opportunity and pitfall in the same sentence, but one of the things we see is that sometimes competing curriculums are used to
Yeah,
teach
yeah.
the same thing. So it's not, fortunately, it is uncommon but not unheard of to go into
Yes.
a school and find two reading programs. And so we have our gen ed reading program, and then maybe we have our intervention reading program. And the
Yeah.
problem that can cause is that they teach our most fragile children two different strategies for approaching
Mhm.
how to decode words. So we just want to be careful too that the leadership knows that we need one approach so that all students are learning the same way or with the same strategies.
Yes.
Think, there's several others, but I think one of the other big ones for leadership to keep in mind is that students need to be put in groups according to their present level of performance, not
Yes.
according to their grade level, right?
Mm.
According to the skills that they are showing us right now. You might have a year 2 student who needs to be in a K program
Yes.
because of their skill, and they're not going to stay there forever, right? We're going to teach them and we're going to move them on and get them caught up. But we can't put a student who is performing at at a prep level and
Mm-hmm.
put them
Yeah.
in a year 2 curriculum, right? It
Yeah.
just doesn't work. It's it
Okay. Yeah,
it's
they're
not
gonna
kind. It's
yeah.
not kind to the student and
Mm.
or the instructor. So there are a few others, but I think those are the big ones. And one thing a leader can do to avoid those is
Yeah.
to be fully invested from the get-go in the
Yeah.
whole process. So before they send their instructors to training, it's helpful for them to know, right, that we need a certain schedule in place. It's
Mm.
helpful for the leaders to know that we've got to put our kids in groups based on their present level of performance, not on their year level. It's
Yes.
helpful for them to know that, oh yeah, we can't use competing programs. So to know those big tenets before saying yes and before sending the instructors can really help avoid, weeding through the marsh
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah. The implementation gets clunky and yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
It,
with no strong foundations. Yeah.
and it gets off to a rocky start, a rockier
Yeah.
start than it needs to. But at the instructor level as well, there are some pitfalls. And if you can think about what we talked about a few minutes ago about the critical skills for an instructor, it would be
Yes.
the opposite of those, right?
Yeah.
So one critical skill that we look at, or pitfall to avoid,
Yeah,
is
yes.
is to make sure that students are receiving the lesson as intended, right?
Yes.
So that would go to the instructor following the script. Are they
Yeah.
getting the wording? Are they getting the sequencing as the field study and data shows those kids need to have,
Yeah.
right? Are students being dragged through the program as opposed to mastering each item and each task?
Mm.
Okay, that's a pitfall. Sometimes we see, oh, okay,
Mastery.
well,
Mm.
it's a new day. I must have to go on to a new lesson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
instead
Or
of,
keep
right?
rushing through. Yeah,
Yes. And so we get to the end of the academic year
yeah.
and say, oh, I went through all the lessons I was supposed to go through. But if my students don't know what they're supposed to know by the time we get to the end of the academic year, there is no celebration for them. There is no clown with the balloons, right? Because yeah, they turned the page, but they didn't know what they were supposed to know. So looking for mastery 100% is
Yes.
critical, and a pitfall that we see sometimes with instructors. It's a new day, I must need to move on. We want to avoid that.
Mm. What about the signal? I do find, like when I visit schools, that signal is not quite consistent or maybe non-existing. Like, so you know how we have to get a unison response. So the best way to get that is to use the hand signal or visual signal. There's a couple of signals you could use depending on the activities you deliver, but it also helps you set the pace. So you know there's a bit of those two pitfalls that I do, in my experience, notice of maybe there's no signal or the pace is lagging.
So yeah, so the student performance problem,
Yes,
right?
so it's
So right,
back to yeah.
we lead with that. So if we don't have all students answering together, and the reason we don't have all students answering together is because there is no signal as to when to
Mm,
answer, or not a clear signal or a predictable signal, then that leaves us not knowing what the students know or don't know, right? We don't know whether we need to go on, or we're able to go on to the next task, or we need to reteach, because we don't know what every student knows because they didn't all answer together, right? So one of the things we'll do when we go into classrooms to look at these critical delivery skills is to see if there is a common theme
mm-hmm.
across groups, across classrooms, and then continue with professional development with
Yeah,
instructors who might
obvious.
need, like you were saying, Jessica, might need more practice in a certain type of signaling. They might need to practice how to correct a behavioral error, right? They might
Mm,
be very good at correcting a response error. Listen, that sound is ah, your turn, ah, right? But what do we do if students don't all answer together?
yeah.
Ah, right? What do we do if somebody jumps the signal? What do we do if somebody lags
Yeah.
behind? So those types of things are discovered during classroom observations, and then we bring instructors together who need the same type of support and
Yeah, yeah.
community.
A bit like an intervention, you know, for kids where you pick the skill that they're struggling with and just pull them together for an upskilling, you know? Yeah.
And only and on the skills that they need, right? So if you think about the error correction is designed to fix the problem, no more, no less, right? And so if
Yeah.
we look at delivery issues, we're going to base the professional development on the problem what we're seeing, no more, no less.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Excellent. Well, last questions for me for today. I was thinking about, and as I'm reflecting on my role as well as a coach, instructional coach, is how do you measure your impact? So I'll just throw that at you. As a coach yourself, how do you measure the impact of your coaching and training?
Yeah. So definitely we look at how students are doing across all the implementation. You want to look at your posted data for sure,
Mhm.
but also look at how are they performing today? How are they performing today with this task in this lesson, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have, and maybe I can't, you'll have to remind me, Jessica, if you've been through the full coaching institute where you,
I did the becoming an effective DI trainer.
right, that was last summer, but
Yeah.
no, okay. So
No,
maybe
I want to do the coach, but maybe next
yes.
year.
So in this coaching academy, coaching institute, uh,
Yes.
we teach coaches how to take performance data
Yes.
during instruction. So you're watching how students are doing, or a coach is
Mhm.
watching how students are doing. We want to give feedback to the instructor that's not based on opinion, right? We want to avoid things that say, I feel like, or I don't think. So in
Mhm.
order to do that, we practice and learn how to take first time correct data. So
Yes.
students are asked to do something. How do they respond? Correctly, incorrectly? Then what does the instructor do as a result of the
Yeah.
student response? And
Mhm.
we can come out with that type of data. We can come out and say, hey, look, looks like your students were 60% first time correct on sounds. Well, that's a
Mhm.
little low. And we
Yeah.
see that the related teacher behavior or things we can change will impact this low percentage, right?
Yeah.
But also learn how to take pacing data. If we suspect that by looking at the data and by being in the classrooms, kids aren't moving fluently, how many responses per minute, and then ratio of reinforcement. So those
Yeah.
are some ways that we track the effectiveness of the coaching and of the training. How are our students doing? But just like you said, just like we said just a few minutes ago, that we see if there are gaps, bring our instructors in for continued professional development. You can't
Yeah.
cover everything in training.
No, no, and it's overwhelming for a
Yeah.
teacher to take on. You can't work on everything. You have to take small steps and then continue, consolidating those adjustment in your teaching. And I'm thinking like in the book from Kurt Egerman, the recent book that the Handbook Practitioners, um, he's got some checklist that I've looked at that are very useful, so that you could do that when you observe teachers, to give your more general feedback. So you would do like a walkthrough, like you said, you might go through, observe 5-10 minutes in every classes throughout the whole school. And then pull back your data, looked at the main trends, and then go to a staff meeting and deliver some more general feedback targeting those gaps that you've identified has become a bit of a trend. Yeah.
And how blessed are the people who get to have you, my dear. Look at how articulate and well versed you are in all of the implementation steps. This is thrilling.
Well, yeah, I'm just putting in action what I've learned. So, yeah, would you like to add one more thing? Like maybe tell us about the conference if anyone is interested to
Oh,
attend. I know
absolutely.
it's in July, it's in Eugene, but yeah, do you have
Yes,
any
I
other
am going.
information for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you for that opportunity. I'm looking real quickly here. The conference is July 21st through
Yeah.
the 25th of that week.
Mm-hmm.
And we cover everything from behavior. How do you get a group of kids in your room to do what you want them to do? Through how to teach a specific program, how to learn how to train a specific program, which is what you did, having coaches come to the Coaching Institute so they learn skills that will support instructors in the classroom. Um, it's a beautiful place to be in the summer in Eugene.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And you could even go up to Portland and there's lots of hikes to do. Last time I went for a hike.
And the conference itself is located close to our river walk. So you
Mm,
leave your hotel in the morning, you can do a nice brisk river walk and be back in time for the your start of your seminar. And there's nothing like being with hundreds of
yes.
teachers who
Yeah, it
are
does.
passionate about direct instruction. I mean, if you're coming and you're feeling a little lukewarm about it, you won't leave that way, because you will be surrounded with such care and support and passion for teaching students with the methodology and curriculum that you'll wonder how or why you ever did anything differently.
I so agree. Well, thank you so much, Tamara. It was a pleasure to have you today, and we hope to see you again. Maybe you'll come to Australia one day.
I have
No?
been I have
Yeah.
been several times. I so
No.
much enjoy it, working with Australian people and the culture and the climate. Oh my goodness, yes. Let me go there in January, please.
Yeah, it's really hot.
Yeah, but I'd take that over what we have right now. The
Yeah.
only thing that when we step off the curb, I have to be very careful not to get run over.
Oh, you're looking on the
Because
right side, on the wrong
the
side.
instinct is to look the other way.
Yeah,
In
that's right. I'm used to now.
previous years, when there was groups of us who would come over, we were constantly saving each other.
Yeah, that's yeah, like coming from France, I had the same issue. I had to adjust.
But we both are standing, so we're evidence
Mhm.
that we can do it. We're adjusting. I'd love to come. I love that area. I've been to Cairns and to well, through Sydney.
Yeah, that's where, yeah, our system is across New South Wales and ACD, so mostly Canberra, but we've got a lot of schools in New South Wales. Yeah.
And
Well, thank you so much for your time, for your kindness, your generosity, your expertise, for sharing, all these tips and knowledge and volunteering your time. Yeah, we're very lucky to have you today. So thank you so much.
a privilege for me as well. So go forth and conquer.
Thank you very much, Tamara.
All right, stay in touch,
See
hon.
you.
Okay.